think I'm live. Are we live? Are we live?
Yes.
All right. So good morning, everybody. We are having a little bit of a tough time this morning because my iPad decided yesterday that it wasn't going to charge, and Michelle always uses my iPad for the chat rooms. However, we've got now my iPad, which isn't properly working. We've got Michelle's iPad. I'm not quite sure. You couldn't remember the password, could you, for yours? But we've also got her phone as well. So between us all, we should be able to take some questions. If not, I should just keep going on here and I'll just tell stories instead. One of the things that well, first of all, I'm forgetting myself. First of all, I'd like to say good morning to Gregel, who is by my right side, and also on the sofa with me. You can't see him, but you might be hearing him as we go along, is my darling cachorro, and he's sort of laid down here, sort of looking at me, wondering what I'm doing. But we also have Michelle. Say good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
And we don't have Al this morning because YouTube did something. They changed things around and we can't figure out how to invite people to YouTube. If there's anybody out there who is a techie who knows what it is we're talking about, we need to invite people to come on this show, and we can't seem to do it now. We used to do it really easily before. Why do these people keep changing things when everything is working perfectly? You just get used to how it's working, and then they just I think they just do it to just keep us on our toes. Then they just literally change the whole system. Anyway, we're going to try our best. We're going to do our best. Now, before we actually start the show and before we start taking questions, do we have anybody actually, Michelle, on the,
we have 11 people so far.
All right, then. So, look, get those questions coming in because we don't know how long we're going to be lasting with the questions, so get them coming in. But we had an interesting email, I think it was yesterday, from Albertine. And Albertine has suggested this before, so I'm just going to throw it out there. And if you comment, great. And if you've got any ideas, great. And if not, I should just let it go by the wayside until somebody says, that's a really good idea and I know exactly how to do it. I'm waiting for that. But Albertine, I think last week we had your daughters on, Michelle, didn't we? We did. Michelle's two girls on the sofa with me. One is 10, about to be 11 next week, I think it is, and 2 weeks. And we also have Addie, who is 13. She's 13. So Albertine. And this is not the first time that Albertine has suggested this, but Albertine thinks that I'm great with kids. And I happen to be really good with kids. I don't know why that is, but I do like children of all ages. And teenagers can be a little bit difficult, as we know. But hey, that's fine. But it was suggested that I should do a children's show, meaning I think that I should have children on the show or have a show with children on it, and so that they can ask their questions, because kids of all ages have questions. My 6-year-old has been asking me questions since he was 4 about ghosts and Halloween and all of that sort of thing, and I do my best to answer him as honestly as I can. But as kids get older, they also have these questions. Is there really such a thing as life after death? Do you really believe in that? Well, how does it work? And so on. And some of my best events have been with teenagers, anywhere from, let's say, 14 to 20-something. I know that we've gone beyond the teenage years, but those kids, and I've gone into schools and I've talked to sort of kids in school. I've been one of those speakers, that they have at school, how they have the district nurse come in to talk to you, and they have the local policeman come in to talk to you, and the local fireman, and they have me come in. And we always have a blast because, as I say, I love kids and of all ages, and I really like to interact. So it sounds like it's a really good idea to have such a program as that, except my access to children is extremely limited. So how do we get the kids to volunteer to come on the show, and how do we get them on the show? If anybody out there has got any ideas about that, I think it would make a really, really good show, because I think, Michelle actually said at the time, well, I think we should educate the parents so that the parents can educate the children. And I totally agree wholeheartedly. However, if the kids are old enough and sensible enough and the parents talk to them and they have good, rapport with their parents, and they learn things, they can go to the parents and ask different questions and so on. I am also in the process, when I eventually get around to it, one of those things, of writing a book, especially for children, inspired by my grandson, because when it comes to Halloween, kids get scared, kids get curious, kids have lots and lots of questions, and the book is going to be about helping kids, but also helping parents to know what to say to their kids. So that's in the pipeline. So if you think it's a good idea, if you have any other good ideas of shows or anything that you'd like me to talk about, please, please, please email me, rosemary@rosemaryaLtea.com. Let's go to questions. We're hoping that my iPad holds up. If not, we're going to switch to the phones. So if there's a little glitch in this show, it won't be the glitch with me. It might be the glitch with questions, and just bear with us.
And just let them know that it might be me commenting instead of you. They might see my name come up for comments.
Yeah, don't. If you see Michelle's name come up, it's not really Michelle. It's going to be me. It'll be on her phone, so her name will come up, but it'll be really me. Let's have our first question, shall we, Michelle?
All right, are you ready?
Oh,
Albertine's on.
Yes. Oh, right. Oh, I've just been talking about you. Good morning, Albertine.
She says, hello, Rosemary.
Hello.
Edgar Casey had the gift to sleep on a book and received answers in a unique way for the client. How is that possible, and can you do that too?
I can, but I think every one of us can do it in some form or another. It's fascinating. I've done this for years and years and years, since even before I knew what I was doing. It's always a good thing if you've got a question or something that you're trying to puzzle out, or you need some help and advice. It's a really good idea to take a book, and it can be any book on the shelf at all, but it's always good to have a book that sort of might inspire you a little bit, or you feel inspired by a little bit, and you just put the question out there into the universe. You take hold of the book in your hands, and then you open the book. Now, this is not a new thing. I didn't start this process. This is something from time and years and years and years. People have been doing this for years and years and years. So you open the book, and the first, paragraph or two should give you your answer, or help you in some way to give you the answer to whatever question it is that you have in your mind. The power of the mind and the power of thought is the most powerful and positive thing that we possess. So just remember that. But also, it's also possible to just sort of lay your hand on a book, or lay your hand on even a photograph or something, and have the inspiration so that you can tell somebody exactly, sort of getting inspiration from. The book might be a diary, or it might be sort of some sort of a journal or what have you. It could be anything at all. But if you have an inspirational book, you don't necessarily have to open it to see what's inside. You can actually place your hand on and be inspired, and the energy that you use to connect with the words in the book are what Edgar Casey used to do. And yes, I bet it's possible for all of us. You should try it. All of you out there, just try it. But you'll find probably it's so much better, and it's so much fun to do this. If you have a question, or if you have a concern, or if you have something that you'd like an answer to, go to your bookshelf. If you go to the bookshelf with the intent of finding a book that will work for you this way, allow it to happen. Let the book speak to you. Some way or another, that book will sort of reach out to you. And as you reach for it, people say, and this book just fell off the shelf into my hand. Well, it didn't just. It might have had a little push from someone in the spirit world to have it fall into your hands. But just sort of pay attention, sort of put your mindset into, I need the answers to this or this, reach out, and then hold the book, ask your question, open the book, bingo, you'll find an answer. It works for me every time. That's all I can say. Next question.
Sharon is on, and she
Morning,
says,
Sharon.
Good morning. She says, my late parents' old house was flooded in Hurricane Sandy and is now reported moldy and rotten and abandoned by the owner. What do they think about that? They love that house. Does it distress them?
No. Good question, but no, I think they've moved on, don't you? Because here we are, we're living in a material world. And while we're living in this material world, I mean, we are human, aren't we? So material things are important to us. I had a guy come in today talking about my floors, which are beautiful floors. I designed the interior of the house myself. I designed the floors and so on. And I was explaining to this guy, this, that, and the other about the floors, which are really pretty gorgeous. And there was a time when I used to lay floors myself. There was a time when I was a shop fitter. Can you imagine these little hands using a drill, using a saw, using a plane, using sanders and stuff? I loved it. That could have been me in another life. I could have just totally been a carpenter because I love the smell of wood and I love working with it. But we are human, so we like beautiful things. And this guy was saying what beautiful floors and so on and so forth. And I gave him the little tip of how to do it. And so he may be doing my bedroom floor. You never know. It depends how much he's going to charge me. Sounds like a lot to me. So I might not want to do it quite yet. But anyway, so where am I? So we are material people and we love things. And I like my house. It's not the same as my house in Vermont. But we love things, don't we? We like things about our homes and so on and so forth. But when we leave here, come on, we know we can't take things with us, don't we? So, I would love to think that my daughter treasured everything that I treasure. But I know full well that the majority of what I treasure she's going to sell. So, and that works for me. And I've told her to do exactly that. If you don't want it, do not clutter up your house with it. Just sell it. But going to sell it, make sure you get the best price for it. Don't just sell it to anybody. And very often with our parents, with people who leave us things, we think, oh well, that's nothing. How many times has somebody found a treasure in a dumpster or in a garage sale or something because somebody thinks it's not worth it? What is one man's treasure? What is one man's junk is another man's treasure. But in the spirit world, we really don't care anymore. We might have fond memories of something, but hey, if it's moldy, if the house is moldy and so on, thank goodness they don't have to live in it anymore. So let's have a next question.
Well, Dean says good morning.
Who?
Dean.
Dean.
Says, hi all.
Oh, you done with your motorbiking, are you, Dean?
He says he's not on it yet.
Oh, I just want to tell you that Michelle and Michelle's husband are what do you call them? Bikers.
Bikers.
They are bikers. They're very scary looking. They all have beards, and they all have beards. The majority, not all of them, but the majority of them have sort of muscles. Whether it's the tattoos they have that make them look as if they have muscles, I'm not sure. But they all have sort of these, tats and sort of leather things, and they are darlings. I have to tell you, careful not to judge a book by its cover. But they are darlings, and you do a lot of charity work. Your group, right?
We do a ton of charity work.
Yeah. So, I think your husband, they're bikers and members of what is it?
It's a law enforcement military-based motorcycle club.
Law enforcement military base. So and they do a lot of charity stuff. You help an awful lot of people, and they're great guys. If you can manage to find them through their beards, they're great. Anyway, so there's something to live up to there, Dean. What did you have a question? I get carried away here.
we didn't have any major questions. I just figured I would give you some of these comments. Terry A is on, and she says,
Good
hi,
morning,
everyone.
Terry A.
And then she said that I think a kid's book is a great idea. And then she responds with, her son was not materialistic at all. So I know what he left behind was priceless to him.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
And then we have Jim on, and Jim is from Treasure Island, Florida.
Oh, you're only up the road. 20 minutes, I think. I love Treasure Island. It's a really nice place. What does Jim want?
He was just saying good morning.
Good morning, Jim. Are we going to see you on my sofa at some point? It's only 20 minutes away, or maybe 25 minutes away or something. It's not an hour away. It's
Treasure Island is
possibly be.
It's up by Tampa.
And it's not really like the Treasure Island with the Long John Silver thing. It's actually a beautiful place.
It's really gorgeous.
How are we doing now?
We have Adrienne, and she says, good morning. And she says, if multiple people pass away that are family members, do they all cross over together at the same time, or do they meet at another time?
What?
So if you have a family in a car that's been in an accident where multiples have been killed, she wants to know, do they cross over together?
Like if there's an airplane crash, or if you have, yes, they do. They pretty much, but they. My understanding is that they go to that. They don't necessarily all go to the same place. They go to their respective families. If you can try to remember that, that even though somebody's passing can be very sudden, as far as we're concerned, it can be very quick. It can be very sudden and out of the blue. Those in the spirit world, they already know. They're already there. They're already waiting. They have, had prior knowledge that we're coming, and they're there to meet us. There was a second part to the question. I can't remember what it was.
That was it. She just wanted to know if they all crossed over together at the same time, or if they meet at another time.
Well, hold on. That's a whole different thing. I thought there was a second thing in there, because yes, of course, if the accident happens and they're all killed innocently, all of them together, yes, they'll pass at the same time. However, that does not necessarily mean that they want to be with each other, or if they do want to be with each other, they'll be together. But if somebody says, no, I'm done with that, I wasn't speaking to her before, so I'm not speaking to her now, then we have choices. We don't have to be with our family just because they're our family. We have choices as to who we are with, who we meet, who we get to greet us, and so on and so forth. Let's have another question.
All right. This one is from Kitty.
Morning, Kitty.
And she says, hi, Rosemary. I'm due an inheritance from a property sold, and the executor of the will is having many, many delays. She wants to know if she can be trusted, that it's been 2 months already.
2 months isn't a great deal of time in situations like this. However, the fact that you are asking the question begs my answer. Why are you not there demanding and asking her to be accountable? Because remember, you're paying for this person's time. Now, this person may have very good reasons why, but with all lawyers, with all accountants, with all of these people who sort of basically are holding our life in their hands, you should be looking over their shoulder. Be that squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel always gets the oil, but if you're running smoothly, I had this same conversation with a young lady yesterday. Don't, just because somebody's a lawyer or a doctor and they're wearing a white coat, or they tell you that there is something or another, does not mean that they have all the answers, and it doesn't mean that they're paying attention to you. They're usually paying attention to the person who's paying them the most money, or they're paying attention to the squeaky wheel, the person who is driving them crazy because they just want to get on with it, get you out of the way, get rid of you, and move on to the next client. So my suggestion is, if you're not right there, pick up the phone every couple of hours and ask, how are we doing now? And have you heard anything yet? And so on and so forth. Be the squeaky wheel. Don't allow other people to hold your life in their hands. Be a participant. You've got to be your own advocate. And that just not applies to you, Kitty. It applies to everybody. Yes.
I had my own experience with that this week.
Yes, Michelle's bed broke, and how long have you had it? Eight
April,
months?
the beginning of April,
and it just snapped. The sidebars just broke. It was lucky nobody was in the bed, because it could have caused serious damage. But the nice, wonderful people she bought it from are not playing. Well, it's going to cost you X amount to, get another bed or replace it or what have you. my feeling is you bought it in good faith. They should repair it, not repair it. They should give you a new one. And if you don't want the same as the one you had, because it's made the same and it's going to break the same, they should accommodate you. They should. It's their fault. So be your own advocate. As I've been nudging Michelle, she's been doing a good job though. All right, let's have another question, shall we?
All right. Kitty says that she says, okay, Rosemary, I'm squeaking. Albertine says, I thank you and will take a good book like Rosemary Casey and Abraham Hicks with owls.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sharon said, it's funny that you use the example of your florist because her father was a carpenter.
Oh, there we are then. I love carpentry. I tried desperately when I was a young mother, and there was an amazing wood yard. It's in the village, and I used to go in there and just smell the sawdust. And I tried desperately to get them to give me some sort of an apprenticeship, and they wouldn't do it because in those days I was a woman and no women. And I used to be a shop fitter, and I tell you what used to happen to me, right? I was a shop fitter. Now, people who don't know what that means is you go into a shop or a store, you tear everything out, you redo it, you redo floorboards, you redo whatever it is, you do the electric, which I drew the line at electrics and plumbing. I couldn't do that, don't want to do that. I could not envision myself with my head down a toilet doing the plumbing, so that's not good for me. But I pretty much did everything else, and I got very much into the carpentry, and I did a lot of stuff around my own house. And I would have that smell of wood and the idea of holding something in your hand and being very creative with it. So I did a lot of that years and years ago. I know I only look a little thing, and I only look sort of little and frail and not very strong, but I'm tough. That's what I used to love it. And men would come and bang, bang, bang on the windows of the shop and shout at me, or some would even dare to come into the shop and yell at me because I was taking a job away from a man. And that happened to me on so many occasions. You're taking a job away from a man, the breadwinner. Well, actually, I was the breadwinner in my house, so, too bad. But I did that in the days when women didn't have jobs like that. I don't know why I'm rambling about this. Let's have another question, shall we?
Dean says,
yes, Dean.
During quiet times, he likes to take a daily nature walk each day. I usually can tell when my loved ones are with me as I feel a chill over my back, head, and arms. For over a month, I have not felt anyone with me. He wants to know, has my family given up on me? Just kidding, is what it says at the end.
No, you know perfectly well they haven't. Maybe you need to be more attentive, and you maybe need to be more aware. Maybe they're saying to you, you need to stretch yourself a little bit, raise your level of consciousness now, stretch yourself a little bit more, work at it a little bit more. So they're probably encouraging you to do that. Let's have another question. There are no other questions?
We actually have a really good group of people on today. They're just quiet.
Oh, come on, people. I mean, really. All right. So I am going to tell a story, and I'm desperate to think what story should I tell? So.
Okay, Sharon made a comment.
Oh, it's just about to tell a story. Go ahead.
Here in the U.S., carpenters have to be in the union. If you're in the carpenters union, forget about plumbing or electrical. It won't happen.
I know. Same in England. Just the same. I'm going to tell you guys a story. Okay, are you ready? Once upon a time. It's a once upon a time story. I feel like I'm telling a story to my grandson. This happens to be a true story. So, before I began properly my work as a medium, I used to see people all the time. Most of you know this about me. I would go into the house, and I would see faces, I would hear voices, and sometimes I would see people. Many, many times I would lay in bed, and I'd have the light on because I was so terrified that somebody would pop out from under the bed and scare me. But it was often the case, even with the light on, I would fall asleep and then I would wake up and I would see these, see people come into the bedroom. And one particular time I saw these two men standing in the doorway. Now, I didn't recognize them at all. It was not my imagination, and I certainly was not dreaming. Uh, it seemed that one of the men had brought the other man because they were sort of discussing me, and I could tell that they were discussing me, although I couldn't sort of hear too much what they were saying. But they were discussing me, and I was able the next morning to describe them in the most detail. So I told my group about this, and I described these two men. The one man in particular was the one man that sort of took my notice the most. I'm going to say it took about 6 or 8 months later, and a man came for a consultation, and I kept looking at him thinking, I've seen this man before. I know I've seen him before. And anyway, it was the weirdest thing, because during the consultation, he said to me, or after the consultation, which was sort of a pretty good consult, but I was a little bit on edge with it because I couldn't understand. I knew that he was the guy that I'd seen this night in my bedroom. I'm thinking, that's sort of weird thing. What does he want? Then at some point he said to me towards the end of the consult, very nice guy, very, very nice guy. He said to me, I've got to ask you, Rosemary. He said, can you, do you solve murders? And the hairs on the back of my neck started to prickle up. And I said, well, sometimes I do. He said, well, what if there's a little boy who's gone missing and there was not gone missing, who was murdered, in my neighborhood. Would you be able to tell? Would you be able to know who the killer was? And as God is my witness, I sort of looked down into my lap thinking, now, where is this going? And as I looked down, I could see this man's hands, and they were large hands. He was a big guy. And the next thing, I noticed his hands, and the next thing, I actually saw his hands around a child's neck, strangling this child. And I thought, now, I can say, yes, I know if somebody killed somebody, or I can be sensible. So I actually said, well, I fluffed it. And I said, well, actually, I don't really know. It would depend on the circumstances. And I got him out of my house pretty quickly. It's as close as I know, absolutely, that I've come to a murderer. I know that he murdered that child. What would you do in that circumstance? What would you do? Because you can't really go to the police and say, this guy came. You can't, because you can't accuse someone without evidence. And although I had the evidence of my own eyes, I didn't really have enough evidence for the police to go in there and convict. Unless the police, of course, came to me, I couldn't really go knocking on somebody's door. Plus, when I give a consultation, it's private and confidential, and I agree that it's private and confidential, so I can't give anything away. The same thing happened with a little boy who went missing, and the police did contact me, and the parents came, and as soon as I saw the father did not come, the mother and the grandmother came, both who knew what had happened to this little boy. And I saw exactly what had happened to this little boy. And so the guy who brought them to me, the policeman who brought them to me, he also brought a friend of his who was a reporter, and he was an investigative reporter. They were trying to find out the whereabouts of the little boy. In that case, I was able to give the investigator and the police enough evidence that then the police contact me again later and said, what else can you tell us? But it's very, very difficult. You're put into, people don't think that about, when we're giving, consultations, people don't think, that we're putting ourselves somewhat in in danger. But there are these desperate situations, dangerous situations that people come and you can see all sorts of things about them which are not particularly good, which are not particularly nice. I wonder what you would all do in that same circumstance. What I did in the first circumstances, I let it go because I didn't have enough evidence, and I prayed that the man would never come back and visit me again, and he never did. And in the second circumstance, I worked with the police, and we didn't get great results because the little boy went missing in a foreign country, and so all the evidence was gone, but we all knew who did it. I did the best I could then. I wonder what you would do. Would you like to have that gift? Would you like the gift of seeing these awful, horrible things? We have to remember, I know you all have questions, and I know you're all curious, and I know that it's a fascinating topic, but there is a side of this mediumship which is, so can be so intense, and can be, somewhat very difficult because of the responsibility that mediums have to first of all to tell it as we possibly in the right way that we possibly can, but also we have to sometimes hold on to secrets that we'd rather not hold on to, and the responsibility is huge. I'm interested to see, what would you say to this? What would you all do if you would you first of all, would you like to be able to do that? Because even for me, and I'm used to it, it's still, I would rather not. But at the same time, sometimes it's necessary to do these things. Would you rather not? Or what would you do in those circumstances? Just food for thought. Do we have any more questions? Any more comments?
No, everybody is very, very quiet today.
Well, you can't be quiet. Come on, you can't. You've got to say something to that. However, there are other circumstances. All right. So I went once to see a young man who was in hospital, and he'd been thrown off his motorbike. His head had hit a tree, and he was completely paralyzed from the neck down. But he also was apparently brain dead, except that to me, we had a fantastic conversation. How can that be? Mind talk, you might say, the power of the mind, the power of thoughts. But he had a conversation with me, and his parents took me to see him, and I was able to give his parents much more information about the accident than they'd originally had. And also, once we got over that, and I was able to show that, I could totally hear this man's thoughts. Isn't that a weird thing? Can we really hear thoughts? Of course we can. And then I was able to give this young man's wishes to his parents, having shown them that I knew what I was doing. I was able then to talk about he was 23 or 4, something like that. I was able to give his wishes. I also had an old man. He got to be in his 80s. He had Alzheimer's. He had all sorts of things. He was in a home, and everybody thought that he had lost the plot, as we say in England. But he was as sane and as sensible as I was. And again, mind talk, connecting mind to mind. I was able to have a lovely conversation with him. And was able to give his wife also. She got to be in her late 70s. I was able to give her a lot of comfort from the words that he had to say to her. What a weird job I have. Don't you think it's a really weird but very, very fascinating and amazing job? Yes.
All right.
Marlene. Come on, we've got to have some questions here. Who is this?
Marlene.
Marlene.
She says, "Hi, Rosemary. My mother had her first birthday in the spirit world, and I saw her with my dad, brother, sister, and family who have crossed, having a party on a beautiful riverbank."
That sounds about right.
Was this real, or was it my imagination?
Oh, I think it might be real. Here's the thing. This is how you can tell. I always say to people, listen. And again, we're talking about mind. We're talking about thoughts, because, of course, it can be your imagination. It can be wishful thinking that creates these things. But I always say, when I tell people to be skeptical. So, of course, you're going to doubt that kind of thing. So you say, oh, well, it was only a dream, or it was my imagination, or whatever it is. But then there's that little niggle inside of you, that little voice, it's called the voice of your soul. And that little voice is saying to you, but it was so real. And then you say, no, it's but it was so real. And you hear the voice inside of you and it's telling you it is so real. And that's when you know that it really is real. So if you've heard that little voice inside of you and you can tell yourself as much as you like, am I crazy? I'm going crazy. Am I imagining this? Is this really, really real? But if you listen carefully, that little voice inside will say, yep, that was real. And I think it was real, Marlene.
Terry said, I would want to be able to see the spirit world, but I don't want to know it all.
No, well, exactly.
I don't know if I want it all.
Yeah, well, then don't do it. It's nice to see your family, but we're talking about mediumship, and we're talking about someone like myself who has done a lot of rescue work. I've done a lot of trance work. I've seen people in trance who really are not in trance. I've seen the make-believe stuff. It's ridiculous. But people are gullible, and people are very needy. And a lot of people who claim to be mediums or claim to be in this work or they claim to be intuitive, whatever it is, we know perfectly well. I'm not disparaging anybody particular, but we know perfectly well there are a lot of people who have a little knowledge, and a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And they either do it because they feel good about, makes them feel good about themselves, or they're simply conning other people. Be skeptical when you hear from other people, but at the same time, when I talk about trance work, when you see a real medium in a real trance, it looks like play acting. It simply does. So you have to know something about the medium. You have to know something about the medium's reputation and so on before you'll actually even believe or accept that what's going on is real. The first time I saw someone truly, really going into trance, I'm thinking to myself, oh, come on, really? No. And then before you know it, I'm doing the same thing. And it is real, but very often what you see is fake. So be skeptical. Next question.
Sharon says, so when some people get vibes about others they meet and brush it off as intuition, perhaps they have a little bit of the ability then? Is that possible?
We all have the ability. Every one of us should listen to our instinct. We should listen to our intuition. God put us on this earth. He did not put us on this earth helpless. And that's what we have to understand and we have to remember. We all have that intuitive sense within us. And the more we use it and the more we accept it and the more we're willing to sort of go with it, the more we get it, the more it works for us. How many times have you driven down the road and full well you should turn right instead of left, and you don't do what your intuition says, and you say, if only I'd have done what I was thinking to do. That's your intuition. That's your soul speaking to you. That is the voice of your soul, the heartbeat of yourself trying to communicate to you. So always try and listen if you can. All of us have this ability to some degree or another.
Magdalena says,
Magdalena, good morning.
When I was a little child, I dreamt of a wolf often, or saw him in the room with me in my mind's eye. I was terrified then, but now I think that perhaps this wolf was one of my protectors.
Well, we all have our power animals, and we all have our power symbols. My online classes, you all right down there?
Yeah, this weather's killing me.
My online classes, we're going to be talking about power animals and power symbols pretty soon. The Native Americans had their totems, and if you look at a totem pole, very often there are animals or birds, whatever, carved into the totems, because they are, they can be, an animal can be our totem. So it's possible that your wolf, was it? It's possible that your wolf is your power animal. And my class are going to get a full explanation of, well, why do we need that? Well, we don't. It doesn't mean that the animal itself has the power. It means that the animal reminds you of the power that you have. The same as your power symbol. It reminds you when you visualize your power symbol or you visualize your power animal, they are not giving you power. They are reminding you of the power that you have within you. So thank you for that story. Next question.
Jim's having trouble getting a question posted.
Okay.
He said he was going to try again, and I sent him a little message that said, if you think of one later, email it to us and we'll ask it next week.
We will, exactly. Yeah. If you can't or you're having struggles, we are having little problems with our
Technology.
electronics today. And how is my iPad holding up? I'm surprised it's still going.
It's really not. I've been using my phone.
Right. Okay. That's all right. So let's have. Do we have another question?
Sun Goddess.
And yes, if I just may say, if you can't get your question through, you can always email me, Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com, and you'll find, Michelle is pretty good, and she'll pull them up, and what's the matter?
Nothing. I was
You're just
listening
staring at me. Oh, I thought I
to
did something wrong. She's pretty good. She will answer the email. She'll get back to you and tell you that, if you watch next week, we'll definitely, do this. Next week, I shall be in New York City with my grandson. Ooh, I'm so excited. And of course, my daughter. I'm excited to be with her.
Who's going to read your questions?
What?
Who's going to read your questions?
You are. Remotely.
Okay.
We'll work it out.
Oh,
Do not worry.
Voice chat.
We should work it out. Yeah, we're going to work it out. So anyway, let's have our next question, shall we?
Sun Goddess wants to know if you're doing mediumship readings, and if you could tell her if she has any relatives around.
I think, darling, what you mean is, do I do consultations? And yes, I do. I do consultations all the time, and if you want to know more about that, please email me, Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. You will find me also on, while I'm doing this thing, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all those other places. Yes, but I do take consultations, and you need to email the office, and Michelle will send you out all of the details. And if you choose to continue with it, we shall book you in. We use either FaceTime, which is, if you have an iPhone, we can, anywhere in the world, you can do that for free, iPhone to iPhone, or iPad to iPad, whatever it is. Or we do Skype. So or they can come here.
No, or we have a new one through Google Duo for those who don't have FaceTime.
Oh, Google Duo.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have Messenger.
And we have Messenger.
So we can talk to you.
And I think you can even do it through Instagram.
I think you can, actually. So we can talk to you at least on FaceTime. We can talk to you on Skype. We can talk to you on that Duo thing. What was it? Google
It's
Duo.
Google Duo.
And a Messenger. If you're on my Facebook page, you'll see we have Messenger, and it's really, really good. And I talk to a lot of my friends in England on Messenger, so it's pretty good. So, do we have any other questions going on?
Kitty says, is there too many times in a year to visit a medium to connect with the spirit family?
That's a really good question, Kitty. How often do you go to see a medium? Well, a good medium won't let you go that often, because they'll say, work it out for yourself. I've told you everything I can tell you. You don't come back for, unless there is a particular issue. And if there is a particular issue that needs sorting out, then a good medium will say to you, yes, okay, you look, leave it a few weeks, see how this pans out, see if you know what I'm talking about, and then of course you can make another appointment. If something comes up that is urgent, or you have an urgent issue, or you have an urgent problem, then that would be when you would go to see someone like myself. But if you think you can just hop on every 2 weeks and have a chat to me, I won't let you do it. My job is not to live your life for you. My job is to show you how to live your life, because that's what those in the spirit world want for us. They want me to show you how to live your life and how to be strong. It's always great to visit your loved ones, but remember, first of all, I'm busy. those in the spirit world are busy, and you should be busy living your life. So you shouldn't have time for, I mean, initially, I get it. People have lost their children. You want to talk to somebody like me. You want to talk to your children through someone like me. I get it. I understand, and I get why people would want to do that once a month. But um, what I would tend to do in that situation is I certainly would, not have a full hour every time. And I laugh when I say an hour because we always say a consultation lasts for 50 minutes. But now Michelle has said, but allow an hour and a half. What was it you said? Or what did you say?
Normally we book for an hour.
Yeah,
I tell them to make sure they allot for 70 to 75.
Yeah, I've never yet, maybe once or twice, but never really. I always go over the hour. Always, just can't help myself. And we're not charging by the hour; we're charging by the consult. So if I'm on with you for 2 hours, you pay the same amount as if. But don't expect me to be on for 2 hours because I'm not going to be. Let's go to. We're getting into trouble here. I'm going to talk myself into just spending my entire life talking to people. Let's have another question.
Deborah is on.
Morning, Debbie. Deborah.
And she says,
I love the name Deborah. Deborah. Yes.
She said, I've always had the feeling that I haven't completed my life's mission. I'm a 58-year-old woman who has always felt I need to take a different path, but have no idea what that is.
Well, you're 58, so what have you been doing if you've no idea? I think I this is one of these moments where I would say to you, if you know someone of a good advisor, whether it's a good medium or whether it's a pastor or whether it's whoever it is who can help you, I would say go talk to someone. Certainly a medium can put you on the right track if they're any good, that is. And they can certainly put you on the right track to see what it is that you can do. But, the answers are usually within your own self. So why don't you just take 10 minutes of every day to sit down quietly and think about where you want to go with your life and what you want to do with your life and what you think your next step might be. I can give you just a teeny bit of advice here, because I do feel that you're sort of on the edge of, wanting to do something and wanting to do something meaningful. Usually in this circumstance, I would say to people, why don't you try volunteering at a children's hospital, or why don't you try going to volunteer at a children's home, or I'm into kids. I think we established that at the beginning of this show, but why don't you do that? But I do think that you do have healing hands. Wouldn't surprise me to learn that you'd been in some sort of help situation or caring, as a carer or caring situation in your life at some point. And I think, sort of going down that road might be very helpful for you. You might want to comment and tell me what you think to that, Deborah, because we're listening.
Rosie.
Yes, Rosie.
Says, I think that you are awesome. I think she's awesome too, Rosie.
Me?
Yeah, you.
All right. Thank you, Rosie.
Do you think that a child can see spirits more than adults can?
Good question. And yes, I do, because simply because children are, then they're not cluttered. They don't usually have all that emotional and painful clutter that's, going on in most adults' heads. They haven't learned yet to sort of put up the defenses. They are much more open and much more aware. So yes, I do think children are particularly perceptive in that way. But I also think that teenagers, because when we get to the point of we're sort of going from the children to adults and the hormones are starting to change and so on, what happens there is that lots of different energy is going on. sort of all sorts of different types of energy is going on. And very often our teenagers are very intuitive around, they're sort of 14, 15, 16-ish, 17-ish age. And so, this is why I think it's really good to have, it would be good to have a kids show or a kids book, because I think that, helping teenagers to understand what is going on with them, I think would be very valuable, and helping parents to understand what is going on with their teenage and their little ones, of course, is very helpful. In my household, of course, my daughter grew up absolutely, I was very honest, I was very open, I was very upfront with her about what I did. However, I was also very careful to say to her, but when you get older, you can make up your own mind. Just because mum believes in something doesn't necessarily mean that you have to believe in the same thing. So, I'm very keen to sort of draw the line between helping children and teenagers to come to some understanding of what is going on, but not to indoctrinate them or to sway them to your beliefs. You can tell them what you believe, but allow them to find their own opinion in things. I like that question, Rosie. Thank you. Let's have another question. Do we have another question?
We actually have a couple more. Now they're coming in because
we're
almost done.
Well, move it then. That song, as my daughter sings this with my grandson. And it's so funny because she takes him she holds him in her arms and she takes him across the room. I gotta move it, move it. I gotta move it, move it. I think it's from some movie.
From
whatever that
Madagascar.
is. Madagascar, which I love that movie. And every time I hear that, we gotta move it, move it. I gotta move it, move it. It's hard for me to move it because I twisted my back, but that's why I can move my shoulders back. Go ahead. Yes, that's
Marlene.
Yeah.
She says, Rosemary, I've noticed you wear that beautiful locket you have on quite often. Does it have a special meaning to you?
No.
Okay, that was easy.
I actually love it. Actually, it's very old, antique. And it comes on I put this on it. This is a belcher, what they call a belcher chain. It's sort of like a strange links to it. And I love belcher chains because belcher chains were used, the old pocket watches where they had the watch in one pocket and then they had the chain with the fob on the other end. And if you look carefully, this has got this little fob on the end there. And I just love belter chains and I love the locket, and it's just one of my favorite pieces. But thank you for asking, and I'm glad you like it. Yes, I get more comments, it's true, on this locket than probably any almost other piece of jewelry that I own. Yes.
Sharon says, we haven't mentioned Grey Eagle today. Please let him know we send our greetings.
Well, we did actually say good morning to him, and he always is here. So he's probably wondering about what I'm playing at today because I am rambling a bit. Anyway, but there it is. We've had sort of a weird last couple of days.
It's been a very weird
last couple of days. It's been so odd. It didn't help because I twisted my back and had all sorts of issues with that. And then Michelle's bed broke, and then her husband came yesterday to try to fix my computer, and then we couldn't get YouTube, and on it goes. However, you can see we're smiling, right? Yes. We're laughing about it. We always try to have a very positive attitude. Right, let's have a next question.
All right, Wendy says.
Morning, Wendy.
Belcher chains are my favorite too, but it is an English term here in America. They call them roll chains.
Oh, well.
I didn't know. I
I think they're actually, I don't know. And Wendy, I'm not going to argue with you because you're British. So
Rolo chains.
Rolo chains? I don't know. I mean, this is an old belcher. Belcher. It's an old belcher. I don't know if I've never seen. And I've never actually seen one like it in America. So I'm going with you. You probably know much better than I do. But I love them. They're usually short, though. You can't buy them long because they were used for the little pocket watches just to go in a man's waistcoat. I always think if you go back to Victorian times and you see men, you see photos and sketches I love that kind of thing. All right, let's have another question.
All right. Deborah says, interesting, as I have always wanted to be a healer. My youngest child has psychic abilities and has opened up an entirely new and unseen world for me. I would love to pursue healing in some capacity.
Well, there you are. I'm glad, because you were worried about which path to take. Be very careful how you pursue it. I'm going to suggest that you probably start by, maybe volunteering a little bit. Be very careful if you go to a spiritist church, or if you go to a church where they train people for healing. There are wonderful people out there. There are wonderful healers out there. There are wonderful people who can teach you many, many things. But we do know, don't we? We have to be skeptical, because there are also lots and lots of people who are, it's a little bit like the blind leading the blind. So if you would like to pursue it, just be cautious about it. But I think you can pursue it. If you were closer to me, I'd grab hold of you with both hands. I'd use your hands because they look good to me. Let's go. Next question. No more questions? Are we done for the day? Is that it?
It's just a weird week. I don't know.
Well, let me think then. Let me see. Would you like another story?
We got about 5 minutes to.
Really? This story is probably going to take at least a half an hour. Just kidding. I'm really just kidding. So next week I'm going to New York, and I'm going to see my grandson. And every day he says to me, every night, when I always speak to him every night before he goes to bed, and he says, I love you. And I say, no, well, I love you more. No. Actually, he'll say, actually, Mosey, actually, I love you more. And then I'll say, well, actually, Reese, I love you more. And he'll say, but that doesn't make sense, Mosey, because actually, I love you more. And on it goes. He's 6 years old, and he's just a darling. So I'm desperate to see him. But we have a list of things to cook and a list of things to make. So I'm going to be really, really busy. But if you are in New York City next week or the week after, and you happen to be walking along, let me think, 64th Street, or you happen to be walking even along 3rd Street, or even along 5th Avenue, you just might see this old lady with a little curly hair, so curly, tight curly, blonde hair. He might be on his scooter, he might be on his bike. Please feel free to stop me and say hello to me, because we do love that. You're all going to go rush now, buy your air tickets and go to New York, aren't you? I don't think so. Do we have anything else? Any other comments? Anything else anybody wants to say?
Kitty was asking if it's a full moon, and that's why we've been affected so badly this week.
Does it feel like we've got, what is that? That we're affected by the moon. I have to say that my father-in-law, we're going back many years to when I was married, my father-in-law really was affected by the moon, energy, that sort of thing. He was always, about a week before and a couple of days after, he had really odd behavior. And if you knew him, and you knew him long enough, you would see literally every time there's a full moon, or just prior to a full moon, he would start to behave in a very odd way. And he was definitely affected by energy. But look at what the moon does. It affects the tides. The moon affects so many things. It's very powerful. The energy of the moon is a very, very powerful thing. So
Sharon said it was moon madness.
Moon madness. Well, he was just odd. And what can I say? And all right. So we're ending this on a really. I can't believe that we've had this. Did anybody ever make any sense of this show this morning? But having said that, even if we've been all over the place, and even if we made no sense whatsoever to any of you, I had a blast. Did you have fun?
I always
Michelle?
have fun.
So we're going to have fun, and we're also going to go and have some delicious curried chicken on a crisp bread now, because I made chicken curry. Do you want some chicken curry for lunch?
Ooh, sounds delicious.
See, I feed my people here, and And the thing is, it doesn't matter what you say to Michelle. We've got potted beef as well, if you want that as well.
Actually, I had some of that last night
She took potted beef home with her yesterday. We made potted beef. We've made a little video of it. If she ever gets around to doing it, of course,
we have to figure out how to upload it.
Oh yeah, we don't know how to upload it. We are completely useless in this area. We have to ask Al, if Al is listening, of course. Hi, Al. But now we're going to say goodbye. Goodbye. Wipe a tear, baby dear, from your eye. Anyway, we're going to say goodbye. And we shall see you again next Thursday. Hopefully, I should be in New York if we can get all these machines going. I think I might have to go out and buy myself a new iPad. I'm cringing at the price. But we're going to try Apple Care and see if we can't get it fixed cheaper first. And then... so we shall see you tomorrow night, Al and I, my co-host Al Pisano, on Everything is Attitude, 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll find it on my Facebook. You can go onto Facebook and find it, or certainly Michelle will be, you'll be putting up the link, right? Mm-hmm. You'll be putting up a link, so watch for that. If you want to
It'll go on the email too.
Yeah, if you want to be on my email list and you're not, email Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com and ask to be put on the email list, because we don't automatically put people on because we don't think that's a nice thing to do. So if you want to be on the email list, email us. If you have a question for me, email us. If you want to watch Everything is Attitude and you want to participate at some point, again, email us, Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. And so the links will be up. That's one of the things that Michelle does after the show. She puts up all the links. She puts everything out so everybody knows where to find us. So we've got the Everything is Attitude tomorrow at 6 p.m. and not much else, because I shall be traveling until Thursday, when you will see me again on this show, and we'll hopefully be able to connect with Michelle and and I don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll figure it out. So until I see you again, I promise, I can't promise. I was going to promise to be less crazy the next time I see you, but I can't promise, because I think I'm just really, really excited because we're getting so close. I'm going to be packing this weekend. I've had to bring out my gold edible paint. I've had to take chocolates. We're going to make gold hearts. We're going to paint them. We, meaning my grandson and I, we're going to make chocolate cakes. I've got to get all the ingredients for that and take those with me as well. So I've got to do all of that stuff. And you think, honestly, listening to me, that I've already had a ton of chocolate because I seem to be high this morning. I'm not really high. I'm just having fun. We hope that you have a very, very, very blessed day. Thank you for watching us. Thank you to Michelle. Thank you to, of course, always to Grey Eagle. And we'll see you again next week, if not before. Please, please, please have a very, very, very blessed day and have a wonderful weekend, because we're coming up to the weekend. Now, this is all new to me. Okay. So where am I? There's my arrow. Where am I clicking?
See where it says end stream?
No.
Underneath your, there, up a little bit. There you go.
Do I click on that?
Yes.
So bye everyone. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next week. And that's end?
Yes, hit end.